We found him. He's not alive, and it's clear that he's done it to himself. These were the 15 words spoken to me by the police officers who came to my house to tell me that my husband, Steve, had taken his own life. There were no warning signs, no suggestion given that this was coming, and no note left behind. The day that Steve went missing was perfectly normal as far as I was concerned. It was November 2018. Steve was getting ready to go to work. I was part-time and it wasn't a working day for me, but our daughter, Evie, who was 9, was getting ready to go to school, and our toddler, Ada, who was 2, would be heading off to nursery later that day. As Steve prepared to leave the house, he gave me a kiss and a hug and confirmed that he'd be home to pick Evie up from Cubs on his way home, like he did on a Monday every week. It was perfectly normal. Unfortunately, that was the last time I ever saw Steve. It was 2 horrendous days later that the police came to my door to give me this news that Stephen had taken his own life. It came as a massive shock, as you can imagine. I had no idea this was coming. And in that moment, my world changed from a very neat, tidy square shape where we fitted the 4 seats in the car and the 4 chairs around the table as a very normal family. And we changed into this very wobbly, fragile, unrecognisable triangle. Now, I and many others I know describe this tragic kind of loss as grief with a microphone. As many of you will sadly know, when it comes to loss by suicide, everything is amplified. All of the emotions that we feel are bigger, louder, deafening at times. Making our way through the hours, days, weeks after Steve died was like wading through quicksand. I was in this survival mode, fight or flight. My energy levels were at 0. I felt like I was sinking all of the time, but I had 2 grieving children to support and a job to hold down at the same time. I felt completely unable to accept what had happened. I battled these deep feelings of anger and resentment towards the situation and to Steve for not telling me that this was how he was feeling. My ability to trust people had completely gone. I was in this permanent fight or flight mode, and it felt like I was waiting for the next tsunami to come along and wipe us off our feet again. Those first few years were unbelievably challenging, particularly with a global pandemic thrown in to push me even further. I dragged myself and my children through that year of firsts. The anniversaries, the birthdays, and the worst one of all for us was Father's Day. As time passed though, I finally began to adjust to this new way of life, to being a widow and no longer somebody's wife, this new identity that had been thrust upon me. And this role of a grieving double parent. I wasn't a single parent. I very quickly defined myself as a double parent because I had twice the amount of work and responsibility. I started to see a therapist to help me through this really tough period of time. And she said the most profound thing to me in my very first session with her. She could sense that I had no feelings of optimism. I didn't know what my future held. And I was feeling particularly hopeless at this point in time. When Kirsty recognised that, she said something incredible to me. She said, "I will carry hope for you until you're ready to carry it for yourself." She was amazing. Kirsty is a very small part of this incredible army of people that are out there supporting those of us who have experienced a loss by suicide. Just like the Baton of Hope bearers and these hope carriers that are part of this amazing movement that we're talking about today. Now, it is true that life goes on. It's also true that we don't heal from a loss like this. We learn to live with the changes that our life has sadly had to adopt. Time does, however, give us space to accept what's happened, this loss and heartbreak and all of those horrendous emotions that we have to learn to live with. It gives us the chance to reshape our lives around a very new future, and one that can have a sense of hope within it. For me, it gave me the chance to put all of this together into one story. It's a story that I call Daddy Blackbird, and it encompasses everything that my children and I have been through. It's a story that I tell that enables other people in this position to feel some sense of comfort and relatability, and to not feel that they're going through this completely alone. And today, granted new perspective by this passage of time that we've experienced since Steve died, I've been able to look beyond the horror and find this sense of hope. And I've created what I call my triangle of recovery. Now, this triangle starts with the first point, and that is me. I had to dig deep to find the strength within myself to carry on. I had to lean on the skills and qualities that I knew I already had, the resilience that I knew I already possessed, but I also had to learn lots of new skills. I continued to see my therapist. I learned different CBT techniques and coping mechanisms to allow me to move forward. I joined a gym and I sweated it out at boot camp sessions regularly, and I still do that now. And I even did a diploma to continue my career and develop myself professionally. There's a quote that I love to share by a brilliant Australian comedian called Hannah Gadsby. And she says, "There's nothing stronger than a broken woman who has rebuilt herself." I love this quote because I feel it really encompasses the power of me and everything that that has meant to me. The second part of my triangle of recovery is all about community and the people within this amazing space that I've connected with, both locally and globally, who are out there doing brilliant things in the world of suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention to help others. I've made new friends, I've reconnected with old friends, and I've met people on this journey, this Baton of Hope, who are doing amazing things for the future and for the legacy of suicide prevention. And it's reminded me that there are incredible people out there, and people that are there to help carry the hope that I needed to feel, not just then, but now as well. And the third part of my triangle of recovery is my children. I started to see these green shoots of resilience appearing in them when they were at their worst, grieving for the dad that they had lost. And I was so proud to see this tenacity that they were showing to the world. I watched my older daughter, Evie, struggle as she started senior school, and she would hear awful language being used around the topic of suicide and horrible jokes being told. She really struggled with this to the point where she couldn't even go to school at one point in time. And what she did was what I do. She wrote about this experience, and she wrote a story which was turned into an animation which is shown in schools and workplaces and within charities, within the NHS, all about how we need to be much more considerate and compassionate when it comes to the language that we use around the subject of suicide. Now, through the work that she's done, she's appeared on Sky News, she's been part of a number of webinars and workshops where we're looking to support the language that's used in schools, and she's won national awards for her recognition in this space and the work that she does, and I couldn't be prouder of her. My other daughter, Ada, who is now 9, is following in Evie's footsteps, and she's turning into the most amazing young person who's full of kindness, compassion and love for the world around her. And she's got a commitment to making sure that her peers understand what this is like, and to explain to them in the most gentle, kind way how we need to be more considerate with the way that we look after people who have lost someone to suicide, whether they're adults or whether they're children of 9 years old, just like her. I realised that we might not be this solid square anymore with its 4 straight sides and its 4 comfy corners, but the shape that we had found ourselves in was a strong one. It was a triangle, and it was sturdy enough to carry us forward as a trio. And it had its 3 points, and that was me, Evie and Ada. And we now look after each other, and we've realised the strength that we have as this trio that helps us feel the light in the darkness that we've been through. I recognise that this will always be an uphill struggle for my children. They will always have this pain and this grief that they carry. They'll never have their dad again, and that's something that they have to live with. And children and young people of this generation have more than enough to carry on their shoulders without such a heavy grief like this. We need to acknowledge that. We need to look after our young people and their mental health. And on that note, I'm going to hand over to Matt Holman, who will talk to you about this very same thing, about the support that young people need when it comes to their mental health and their well-being. Matt is a very good friend of mine. He's an amazing human being. He's a well-being expert and a baton bearer for 2025. And I'm proud to pass over to him now.